Google Meet and technology.
Solved.
That's okay, not an issue at all.
Okay. So, Julia, coming to you, it's I've been following you quite a lot on FOHB, and the fact that you took that decision to adopt an older child. That's something that my husband and I intend to do once our younger ones are grown up enough to handle their lives on their own better, and they don't need us giving them as much attention as they require right now. How did you all come to that decision after adopting Mira?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is really a wonderful platform. Um, if someone had asked me like 5 years ago, if you're going to adopt a teenager, I would have been like, no, that's crazy. But after having Priya and seeing and having the group and having so much support and seeing how others are able to do it, and we never really wanted to adopt a baby anyway. That was never our want. We always wanted to adopt a slightly older child, at least, to a kid that needs a home. There's so many people that want a baby, and that's fine, but there's no need, right? So actually, when we went to adopt Priya, we had asked for an older child, not as old as our oldest is, but we didn't want the baby experience. We've had the baby experience. We had two boys. We wanted a child that was younger than our boys, but that wasn't something that we had wanted. And then during the pandemic and everything, one child kept basically coming in our view, and we couldn't get her out of our heads. And at first, her being a teen, we were like, let's just try to see if we can get somebody want to adopt her and all that. But we couldn't get her out of our heads, and there were so many signs that kept coming to us. Like, we knew the people that adopted her best friend, and all these things just kept falling into place. And we sat our kids down and said, what do you think? And without hesitation, they're like, of course we should adopt her. And then our oldest boy, I was like, actually, you guys share your birthdays. Is that an issue? And he was like, Mom, that's not a reason to not adopt somebody. Why would we not? And so I was like, okay, there's too many reasons why we should adopt her. We want to adopt her. So, let's just go forward. And if we hadn't had the group, and we haven't had so much experience of knowing other people, and I stay involved in the adoptee groups and everything to understand the whole side of adoption, not just the happy little rainbow parts. And we felt like we had enough research in us and everything that, this will be difficult at times, but it's something that we want to do and that we can do. So it was just like, okay, let's do this. And yeah, thankfully it's working out beautifully. I mean, there's definitely challenges and ups and downs. It's a lot for her to deal with, especially. But yeah, it's just, I'm so grateful that we did do it. And so anybody that is thinking about it, that really has a passion for it, I'd say definitely go for it, because there are plenty of older kids in need. So
That's right. That's true. So, Aditya, coming to you, I think you're quite the star when people talk about adoption, and the way you fought your way through to ensure that you had your child with you. So, if you can just share your experience and your journey until now, it'll be great. I think you need to unmute. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So my story for adoption is I did adoption because when I visited an orphanage, and they said nobody wants to adopt him because my son has a special need, and this is one of the reason biological parents leave him in an orphanage, and the caregiver said nobody is going to adopt him in India because nobody give preference to a special need child. So that was the this word just. I was very disappointed after hearing this word from the caregivers, and I hold my son in my arms, and he was looking at me, and I said, okay, if nobody wants this child, give it to me. So this was just a spontaneous decision, and at the age of 27, I never thought of to adopt a child, and I was not aware about what is adoption process, and I said I want this child if nobody wants it. So it starts from here, and I'm very thankful that my son accepted me, choose me for this decision, because it was my desire to become a parent. So
Right.
I'm thankful to him that he accepted me as a parent, and he's teaching me how to become a parent. So my journey starts from, and only he was the one who was motivating me to going for this journey of adoption, because I was not eligible to adopt any child in India. As per the CARA, minimum age for single parent was 30. So the difference between child and parent should be a 30 years. And in fact, nobody giving priority to a single man, because of course you can see here it's a good example that I am the only male parent in this forum. So the woman, this adoption is dominating by women in India, and everybody, just because of the mindset and psychology, only female can take care of a child, not a man. So in fact, in that criteria I was not fit. So nobody was agreeing and ready to give me the custody of my son. And when I have to request the concerned department's authority, and they said, who you are, you're just a common man, be in your limit, we cannot consider your case as an exception, and you're not eligible to adopt a child. So until we change the law, and or until you turn 30, then only you can adopt a child. So I decided, just because of this law, which is not based on any logical thing, that why the difference of 30 years between a parent and a child. So I
Right.
better ask a logical question: on what basis you have decided this? Right, when the adult can marry at the age of 21 and 18, and they produce their own biological child. So to adopt a child, on what basis you are giving that thought of a 30 and put it in the constitution and law for adoption? And there were few more things that I have raised during that time, and they said, no, we are drafting it and we are about to change the law. And for me, I have to travel around 800 kilometers. I was in Maharashtra, Pune. My son was in Bhopal, so to meet with them, requesting the concerned authority. So it was, I could say, it was a difficult journey, because nobody was there to understand why I'm doing this. Everybody was asking, why you want to adopt a child? Why you want to adopt a special needs child? You are not eligible to adopt a child. You're wasting your time, money, efforts. Better to focus on your career. Nobody have done it before. So what is your problem? And everybody is just putting me in a way that I have done some crime and I'm doing something wrong. Like, because see, still adoption is a taboo in our country, and nobody give means still people think that it can't be a choice of anyone.
Right.
So this
Absolutely.
is the wrong Lee put it, and unfortunately, so the in fact the parents who have adopted, they are also very silent, because when it comes to adoption, so the first thing comes in the mind of other people is they may have some medical challenges, or they can't produce their own child. That's the reason they are going for it. And so the acceptance in a family society, it's very difficult. In fact, within a parent means, so there is all, I mean, adoption is always a taboo. And when I was doing it, they said it has never happened. Why you are wasting your time? So I don't have any reason to convince other why I wish to adopt a child. So my son was only the motivation factor, who was just telling me when I go and meet with him, he's just lying on a bed, open his eyes, and I can feel it that he's just saying, keep going, keep move on, and yes, we will win. So the Indian Constitution was changed, and adoption law was changed on 1st of August 2015. We got the support from the minister Srimati Menka Gandhi, and she have taken a decision to change the adoption law considering our case. And in fact, she visited the orphanage as well to meet the son of my son Avnish on
Lovely.
27th or 20th of August 2015. And because she was like, everybody is saying this child is mentally retarded. So for this child, why the software engineer is giving mental? And he just chasing for this child and wished to adopt this child. And she met with him in an orphanage. And I got the custody. So the main issue I was facing is with the policies. with that I was not eligible. So that was taken care by the government. They've amended the adoption law, and with the age criteria, they have made the adoption process online. Until 2015, 1st of August 2015, it was not online. You need to go and get the registration in the SA, but after that, it's now online, transparent, and easy. Now, the second hurdle that was the more difficult is the mindset and the psychology of a people. Only female can take care of a child. You are not going to take care of a child. You can't be a good parent.
Right.
So I said, you can't, until unless you don't give me a child, so how can I prove it? There
Correct.
is no way to prove if I don't have a child. In fact, none of the biological parent can prove. And there is nothing called a parenting training that I need to go for it. Right. So I believe my son, when he come in my life, and he's going to give me that training. So why don't you give me an opportunity to prove myself? And finally, I got the custody on 1st of Jan 2016. So it was a New Year day. And I took Kavnish at home. And since then, our life has changed. Then I realized he don't have issues what the uh, caregivers have informed me, like mentally retarded or physically handicapped. It's just a Down syndrome, and it's a chromosome disorder.
Right.
And then my life with Avnish start, and we were very happy. And there are many people, they were asking me question, how difficult it is. And I said, no, it's very easy compared to the journey I have before adopting Avnish, before he came in my life, because that 1.5 year was really a very difficult for me. And I believe the journey I got it because it's just like a preparation how the life is going with Avnish. So we are
Right.
enjoying our life, and I'm thankful to Avnish, who is accepting me and doing lot of adventures.
Right. And I mean, they're very heartwarming stories that we see up on, your Facebook page as well. So, thank you, Aditya. And what you said was right. That we kind of understand that you've gone through, quite a lot of effort to bring in policy changes to help single fathers adopt. So the talk of adoption, even in mixed families, it's attracted varying degrees of dissent from certain factions of various families. There are doubts about lineage, bloodline, emotional impact on the biological children, social stigmas, and there are a lot of other stories of trauma that even I personally, and I think all of us around here, have heard from prospective adoptive parents. So, Aditya, coming back to you again from a policy perspective, what was the greatest challenge that you faced in, bringing out this entire policy change?
So the problem the problem is, and even in fact, I have highlighted this concern. The people who have made a policy, they never adopted a child, so they don't know the importance of adopting a child. The people who are sitting in the office, the authority office, the car office, nobody have done the adoption. So how they know the pain of adoption, the importance of adoption? Right, and the same thing I have mentioned in my emails to the ministers and everyone, that you people are talking about, even you people never give a thought of adoption. Tell me one thing, why you cannot change the law? Why means, what is the problem? Go and check on the ground reality. We have just 2,500 or the 3,000 children who are legal free for adoption. As per the UNICEF statistics, we have 20 million kids who are orphan in our country. In 2011, they have done the survey, and they have put it in. In fact, I have highlighted various issues, various gaps to the Kara and Sara, that these organizations, these orphanages have X number of children, and these are not legal free for adoption. So it's not replicating in your data. And in fact, when they done certain survey, when they have sent the notice to them, and it was correct. So the point is, they are not taking it seriously. Means, unfortunately, in fact, if you have any questions to ask, you need to just write an email for at least 2 3 or 10 times, then you will get some response. If you call on the helpline numbers, nobody will going to pick the call.
That's
Right,
true.
and in fact, they are working in Indian hours. So we have parents who wish to adopt from outside India, right? So there is no call support for them.
Right.
So the point is, the we are not giving a thought that the now the parents, the people in our country, they are open for adoption, right? And the important thing is required. In fact, the agencies, they are, means, they are not equipped with the proper information knowledge. They don't know the law which was passed in 2015. It takes agencies to adopt the new policy. It takes a year. So The problem is with the information and awareness. We are not highlighting what the who have adopted the child and how good they are doing with the child. So these positive stories we don't have, means we are not giving the positive messages, and it just it is just like the people are coming and doing their work, but they are not linked emotionally with the job they have. How difficult to put the child legal free on adoption? Right, we have a huge number of children who are looking for a family. We have a 10,000 plus parents who wish to adopt a child. I agree, everybody is looking for a good looking child, everybody is looking for a healthy child. Nobody prefer to adopt a special need child, intellectual special need, yeah, or nobody prefer to adopt elder children. But what about the new kids? Or there are families outside India, they wish to adopt. In fact, for the foreigners, I know there are various parents, and I am trying to help and support them. It takes years, 1.5 hour to complete the adoption process. The judge is not able to understand why we are sending kids outside India. So I have raised a point to the lawyer. Can you please ask judge if he's ready to adopt a child? Why should we send our kids to outside India? But he's
Right.
going to adopt in India. The point is that.
That's correct.
So
No,
there
that's
are various. Yeah.
I think that the whole legal system is in a real mess, and it has been since we adopted, where this adoption had only was possible under the HAMA, the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act. In
right.
those days, no non-Hindu could adopt. If they even thought that a child was abandoned in what was seen as a Muslim area, that child could not be adopted because the child was Muslim. Apparently, I don't know how children are born Muslim or Christian or whatever. Other religions could not adopt. This was a battle that we, and of course, also men could not adopt, women could not adopt. Unmarried women could not adopt. Married women could not. When I adopted, I did not sign a single paper because the entire thing was by my husband. It was my husband who adopted, and the entire law was that he needs a son, or it was not assumed that anyone would ever want a daughter. If you looked at the language of the Hama, it is horrible. So it took a long battle to even change that and to make these possible, that a single woman could adopt, that a married, if say for example, if I had a biological child and an adopted child, I would have rights over the biological child as a mother, but zero over the adopted child, because that was done by my husband. So the law and the understanding of the law and the social reality of the law is one huge issue, because Kara is not law. Kara is only a set of guidelines. So
Right.
what we should be talking about is the law, which is now under the Juvenile Justice Act, which makes it possible, which makes it more flexible. And also that the Kara is only a set of regulations, which is not the law, and those are easier to change because regulations can be changed. And if we're talking about actually making adoption easier, interstate adoption, because my child, for example, I was told was from outside West Bengal. That was another issue. That are you willing to take a child who is not Bangali? I said, what do you mean a child is not born Bangali? Child becomes Bangali. All of that. So in those days, this interstate adoption was allowed. It was not a big issue. Now that's become a huge issue. So they've actually made it more complicated because this whole interstate thing, the free for adoption thing has to be changed. I completely agree. This who is fit for adoption, who is free, that has to be changed. I mean, if you're really thinking about making legal changes, there are a lot of changes that need to be done. And I believe that if all of us get together, we can do them, because this is not law, these are regulations. Regulations are easier to change, laws are.
Right.
So Pragya would take up something like this. I at least would be very happy. I'm sure many of us would be very happy to take up these challenges. And even the online thing, the reality of India is that online is only accessible to a few people. The number of people that we help as well, who don't know, I mean, and the kind of papers they want, 3 years tax returns. How many poor people have tax returns? So is it that only rich people can adopt? I mean, the rules are completely ridiculous and they should be changed. I mean, I'm all for that we need to lobby for these changes. We need to do something, and we need to really, if we're serious about encouraging adoption, part of it is also changing the rules. Aditya, I'm absolutely with you on that. But the rules are ridiculous.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. So, Nilanjana, coming to you, so you brought your heart baby home 2 decades ago. And, as we discussed earlier as well, so this was a time when even the talk of adoption was like a social stigma. So, what are the challenges that you personally faced in the
I think they haven't changed very
absence of
much.
a proper support system?
Okay. I mean, one of the reasons we started Atmaja, which means, born from the soul, was because we felt that we didn't know much about adoption when we started the process. We didn't know how to go about it. There was no awareness, there was no website, there was nothing. And also that people needed to talk. I mean, people who were even thinking of adoption needed to talk to people and get a sense. And so we got in touch with all the agencies. Most of the agencies were very helpful. They would say that, okay, come in 1 day a week. You can meet the parents. Some of them actually arrange for pre-adoptive counseling sessions that we used to do. That what is it all about? Even now, we work with a couple of them, and we do these kind of sessions for parents who are thinking about adoption. What are the pros and cons,
Right.
and stuff like that. And also, we felt that we didn't know what was happening. That, okay, is it normal for a child to do this, or is it because she's adopted? Why is she throwing tantrums? Is that normal, or is it because she's adopted? Everything, you need a certain amount of support. And if anything happens with an adoptive child, people around you will say, oh, she's adopted. Even a doctor I went to, because she had a very bad ear infection, and she was very small, and then went to an ENT specialist, and so he asked me that, okay, is this in the family? Does this happen, and all that? So I said, well, she's adopted, so I don't know about her family. And this doctor, he literally stood up, started washing his hands, and said, all adopted children are what was the word? Defective. No point. No
My
point in
goodness.
treating her. This is a doctor in a good clinic. So so these are the kind of attitudes that exist, and I don't think that very much has changed. Very honestly, I mean, maybe a little better among some of us, but in the so one of the other things that we did were awareness programs for doctors, for gynecologists. That we would do little leaflets and keep them in these fertility. Some of them, everyone wouldn't allow us to, but in the fertility clinics, that this is the limit before after which you cannot adopt. So if you're having problems, why not adopt? It's a much easier thing than going through all this IVF and things like that. We'd meet with doctors. We would talk to in Bengali, the TV serial producers. We would say that, all the stories about adoption are weird. They're all about, oh, my, what, kanun, what do they call it in Hindi? Rocket tan, as we say in Bangla. There is all about the call of the
Unka
blood.
Rishta.
So, it's not like that. So please, tell us other stories. These are the real stories. So, and some actually did. So that was one thing that we started. We talked to the journalists that this is not the kind of language you use when you write about adoption. This is the proper. We had a whole dictionary of terms.
Yeah,
Um, we talked to counselors because counselors are equally bad. We talked to counselors. They were very willing to, in fact, interact with us. That if there's a problem with a child, don't assume that it's because he or she is adopted. Biological children also have problems. It's not only adopted children. So, so one of that was, raising these awareness issues across sectors, not just amongst ourselves, which of course was the priority, but also reaching out to other communities so that the overall thing becomes, clearer to judges. Tiwari was talking about judges. The judge who was looking after us also asked me that you have a son, why do you want a daughter? And anyway, you're working, you don't need another child. So, things like that. So we were actually also talking to judges. We had a whole sort of printed, which is something that a lot of the other people also funded for us. I think CRY funded these leaflets and stuff for us, which we used to distribute. So there was a whole lot. I mean, if we're really thinking of doing this at a meaningful level, then those are also things that we have to consider in some ways, and we have to constantly sort of be aware of what's happening around us and address those. Definitely, I think the children were also benefited by this because sometimes the attitudes of the parents, the society also seeps into the children, that they are somehow, different, they're weird, and so on. So I think having the children together, having them, play together, learn from each other, become friends in many cases, that was also important. So there were a lot of these kind. Of course, a lot of the legal changes that you mentioned. The legal situation was very bad when we adopted. It would be written on the birth certificate that this child was adopted. So
Right.
that was one of the things we lobbied for. But I didn't get maternity leave, so we had to explain why it's important for adoptive mothers. They said, "But you're not ill. You only need maternity leave if you're ill." We said, "No, like, that's a wrong concept." So everywhere we had to sort of go and change a lot of things, which some we managed, some we didn't. But one of the most important thing that I think someone mentioned is this whole thing of shame. That the idea of disclosure. I mean, Akhtar has been around for about 20 years. Is our 20th year, but the number of members who actually pay, membership and want to become members who are uh, visually sort of there is very small. Lots of people will come to us when they're in trouble, when they need help, when they need advice, but they will not become members because they are themselves somehow hiding the fact from society. Even if
Right.
they've told their child they're hiding it from society, many people have actually changed addresses, so you can't contact them anymore because they don't want to be identified. Those kind of things are still very deep rooted. So I don't know whether things have really changed that much as we would have hoped in 20 years, 25 years.
No, I agree. I mean, I do know a lot of adoptive parents myself, and some of them, though they openly talk about adoption. When we meet up and during the support group discussions, I think when they are in their own social circles, they do feel. I think it's more a sense of guilt. Um,
Inadequacy.
yes, and
I
they they
think.
they, they,
They
they,
are
they
made to
don't
feel
want.
inadequate.
Exactly, exactly. So, now that we're talking about this, so Julia, you recently brought home your older girl and who's, a teenager, right? How is it that, you're trying, what are the steps that you're taking to kind of break the cultural and, the language barriers and, and the fact that she's a teenager, so the hormones are raging. So, how do you handle all of that?
A lot of grace and patience. We have to realize that where she's coming from and meet her where she's at. In some ways she's a teenager, but in some ways she's not a teenager. Being in the orphanage setting for so long and everything. And also have to. The best thing is, have a strategy before the child even comes home, right? If you're single or if you're have a partner, you have to do your research and discuss all the situations that could come up and be consistent and say, this is what we're going to try, and also be open to the fact that things are going to happen that the way you didn't think they were going to happen.
Yeah.
Even, I've had so much experience and so much research and still things will happen a little differently, right? But you should have each other just to lean on and stay consistent with whatever you do. But culturally, we're half an Indian family anyway, so it's not as difficult for us as it may be for other families. But I was in India with her for almost 4 months, and I don't speak Hindi at all. So, a lot of watching movies together, Google Translate, friends that speak Hindi, and things like that. So, you make do and everything. And the most important thing is just to show that, I'm here, I'm steady. I'm not going anywhere, even if you're going to throw a tantrum or you're going to say these things to me or whatever. Understand why they're saying certain things.
Right.
Everything has been turned upside down. Everything she knows has been, in some ways feels wrong or different, and just understand where she's coming from. And that's the biggest one. Just try not to get upset about certain things, not take certain things personally, because it's very natural for her to feel certain things or say certain things. And just try to be accommodating in certain ways without losing your parenthood. Something like, oh, I only want to eat this food. Well, okay, you're not only going to eat this one food, but every once in a while we can have this food that you like, but realize you have to eat what I'm making. Things like
Right.
that. Right? You still have to, you have to bond, but you have to parent as well. And any child needs structure and discipline. And for an adopted child, especially, those things are actually comforting, whether or not they admit it or not. Because they know what to expect, right? Okay, she said this is going to happen, and what she says is consistent, so this is going to happen, right? So
Right.
certain things like that. But all these things, during bonding can happen. Language isn't ultimately a barrier, right? Because as long as you show love and support, it's there. As long as you show that you're trying, they understand that, right? And little by little, she's getting it. And any child can learn a language, right? That's one of the biggest things people keep asking me is like, well, she doesn't speak your language. I'm like, but she'll learn. That's not a reason to not give her a chance, right? So little things like, she won't be able to live in America. So staying in the orphanage or going to the streets is going to be so much better, right? Why not give that opportunity, right? To me, that all those questions didn't really make sense to me. There's what if, okay, what if she stays? What if she lives on the streets? We all know what can happen then. So why is that a better alternative? Why not even try?
True.
That's the biggest thing for me. Whenever anybody says anything, okay, you tell me the alternative. You tell me what you're going to do. Oh, nothing. Okay, then you don't really have a say here, do you?
That's true. That's true. Absolutely. No. That's absolutely true. And the fact that, you spoke about setting boundaries, I think that goes for all children. It's just the way you approach it and,
Yeah.
handle the entire thing. So how do you manage the abandonment trauma that's embedded, in them? Because I've gone through 2 years of raging fevers and clinging on during the period
Right.
that my little one was abandoned. So I what has worked for you the best? Because especially since Priya is still very young and mine is even younger, so you can't even talk to them and get them out of that situation right now. So
Right. Well, I think there's going to be stages of it because right now Priya has more issues with it than our older daughter does. Actually, we've only been together for 5 months or so. So right now it's more her issues are, I'm going to test you to see if you go away. I'm going to test you to see if you take me back. When we were in India for those 4 months, she did a couple things to see like, okay, are you going to drop me off? I'm like, no. You don't understand. You're stuck with me whether you like it or not now. I'm not going anywhere. So, and it was really, and she didn't want me to drop her off. She didn't want me to go back, but it was like, okay, how much can I test you? You say you're going to do this, but are you going to, right? So there are a lot of moments like that. And really it's just staying consistent. And, there's so much that happens in your head too. And you're getting upset too. And you're like, okay, how much can I show that I'm getting upset? But they need to see your emotions and everything too. But the biggest thing is just like, I'm here, you're with me, let's work on this together. Let's talk. Even with the language barrier, there's still ways to communicate, right? And there'll be times when things are lost in communication for sure.
right.
But and Google Translate's not always correct. But they can feel where you're coming from to a certain extent. So far, the main issue is I don't think that the main issue is just pushing at this point, and the best thing is just staying consistent with things, well, oh, you're
Right.
bored. Okay, let's figure out why you're bored. Hey, let's learn some more English today. Let's take a little bit longer. And then okay, I'm not bored anymore. Things like that. So
Great. Thank you, Julia. I mean, there were some really good takeaways over there. So, Subarna, you are a senior and another experienced adoptive parent as well. So, similar to what I had asked Nilanjana. So, at a time when adoption was treated like a hush-hush conversation, how did you normalize this entire concept with your family and your children?
Yeah, see, today I think the panel is titled as Why Adoption? So I take your question from that perspective. Why not adoption? That is where it all comes from, that, why are we even questioning it so much? So how did I normalize it? I'm just going to, I think a lot of people I'm hoping would be watching this are people who are considering adopting. So not all of us are going to be coming from a space of activism or, change making. I would want to say that, normalizing in our own lives, in our own homes, is actually the biggest challenge because, it primarily, it is our job as a mom or a dad that is going to come and play. Our roles as social change makers are definitely very important, but that is an agenda we pick and choose for ourselves. That does not come as a package with adoption. Just because you're adopting doesn't mean you have to go and change the world. I'm just saying that very clearly because, there is this whole sense of that I have adopted. And, as adults, when we make a move like that, there are so many people who would be wanting to cheerlead us on and say, like, what a brave, courageous thing you've done. So I want to reiterate this for everybody, that we are adults. We have all the support that we need. And frankly, the bravery, the courage, whatever we see is that little one who's been in that crib and waiting for you, not having you with him or her. So that is that act of courage and bravery that, that kid has actually fought through without your support. So every time that somebody tells me that, I just want to turn around and say, hell no, there was no act of bravery and courage on my part. That was my son who was so brave and waited for me this long for me to go and find him. So that is one premise that becomes very important from a very, I'm trying to, speak from it from the emotional journey point of view.
Right.
Secondly, normalizing it within the family. This is a little trick that we do. I'm sure a lot of us do here. I think humor is a very, very important element in life. And normalizing things comes the easiest when you do it with a little bit of fun. So yeah, there are going to be these emotional highs and lows, moments where we'll be holding our babies and, we'll be thinking, and birthdays will be coming. My son's birthday is on Sunday. So, that's something that's on my mind. When the child is little, you're thinking and what to do, and there's this whole thought process as parents that, is someone else thinking of him? There's so many other aspects to it and thoughts that adults also, we need to know how to process that. So the journey is not just about fighting the stigma. The journey is actually a much more internal one, where you delve so much deeper within your own self. So I think parallelly, we need to balance that out. And the humor has been a very important key. My partner, my husband, who live together, we've just spoken about it in the most normal possible way, where the story, I think the birth story of kids are very important. Similarly, adoption stories are so important. How we tell that, how we, change. I'm talking, of course, of a younger child here, Julia. I mean, I know the challenges are different, but, when the child is growing up, that becomes another perspective of how we say. And then my son would insist that, let's repeat the story, tell it to me 100 times. Eventually, one fine day, he said, but why did you come? And if only it was Tendulkar, I would have been a cricketer today. So yeah, let's have some fun around it. Adoption is a wonderful process, and it's a very joyful, celebratory path. It is not really all about the struggles, because finally what we are left with is like a bundle of happiness and love and joy around us. We are not really left. The residue that is with us for the rest of our lives is not the struggle of that 1 year or 2 years. So I think normalizing it comes with, as a little, people who've gone through the journey for so many years. This is one little takeaway that I can share with you, that 17 years after my son has come home, I don't remember what paperwork, what documentation, what I had done, where. Yes, we did all that. And I'm sure there are many more doing all that. But heck no, do it once and you don't know what lies ahead. It's literally a fabulous road ahead. And you evolve as human beings in a very different way. So that, I think, is the most important part of normalizing, that the journey of parenting is not at all different. The way my daughter grew up and the way my son grew up, I don't know. I'm sure Nilanjana will have a very similar take, and so will Julia. People who've had biological and adoptive parents, we've been that way. I can vouch for it that very few of us actually remember, which kid has come out of where.
True.
Right. I don't even like to say heart baby, because I don't know, was that heart? Was that my tummy? Where was that from? Finally, that's what you're left with.
Right. No, I completely.
As a closing,
I feel you.
We all talk of romantic love. We all talk of loving that one individual in our lives, and having this amazing person. Well, if it's so easy and we look forward to loving an adult, Let me just tell everybody that loving the child is 1,000 times easier than that. It doesn't have to have any blood connection or and stuff like that. I mean, we have the greatest love stories of Laila Majnu and stuff like that. And how easy is it to love a baby finally? So yeah, I mean, let's keep all that genetic and stuff aside and let's concentrate on where we are coming and why we want to become parents. It is that unconditional love and giving and caring that is there. So coming from that premise, I think adoption is the only thing that we are left with. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also adding to this, I can help you out. The people ask why adoption? What are the importance or benefit of adoption? And I used to say, like when you prefer to adopt, so you have an option to select the gender. You have an option to select you want a single child or a sibling child. You have an option to select the age. You don't have option to when you plan for a biological child. So you can't have any age options, right? You have an option to select from which state of India you wish to adopt a child. Okay, you look like Maharashtrian, but you want to go to Assam, you want to go to Arunachal Pradesh, you want to adopt from some other state. So you have an option, and the best part of adoption is you don't need to get a partner. You can adopt a child as a single parent, and in fact, the adoption is not that costly. And so, why not adoption? And second thing, you were asking about what means there are people. In fact, I was on a call with Vidya Balan and Dhun Badal Ke Dekho, and she asked me, Aditya, are you going to tell Avnish that he is the adopted child? Even if I try, he won't accept it. Why don't you come and try? In fact, people who are saying me that how you are going to tell Avnish that he is adopted child, please come and make him understand adoption and he is my adopted child, because he is not going to uh, agree with you on this. So because it's not about that he is a special need, but yes, at the age of 6, definitely it will take time. After 5 years, he will learn about adoption. But I'm sure he is not going to ask me more questions that about the roots and all. And yes, for the special needs kids, these all issues, in fact, with the biological children, children who have special biological parents who have a special need kids, they are hiding, they are not telling, they are not taking them in society, and they feel like it's a guilt. So we are here in our society and in the developing countries that people are not ready to accept any changes. They are not ready to accept if that is not as per their expectation. Unfortunately, children in our country are the expectations of a biological parent, and if it won't work, so they are just abandon the child. The kids who are abandoned, those are some biological child, right? Someone biological child, and they didn't meet the expectations. And the worst part is when a single woman wish to adopt a child, everybody appreciate here. Oh, she want to adopt a child, she's doing a good job. When a single woman wants to give to a birth to a biological child and become a single parent, nobody accepted, none of the family. And there are very less number that the single woman are bringing the child. In most of the cases, she has to abandon because of the family pressure or abort the child. So this is the problem with the psychology and the mindset.
True, Aditya. You've touched on some very, very pertinent points, and this is something that has to change at the grassroots. And the fact that these are cultural nuances that have been there for like centuries, it's definitely going to take time. But then it's heartening to see that there is a lot of change, especially with the fact that people are coming together. There are a lot of people who have formed support groups such as ours, people who want to do a lot more towards building awareness about adoption. It's not just in the tier 1 cities. I'm talking even about tier 2 cities as well. And a simple trickle down of this is when we brought our little one home, a lot of people in the society that we live in were not aware of it, because we didn't find the need to broadcast it. But then when they saw her, it was not them, but it was all the maids working around in our society who started looking at this whole concept very differently. And there's a complete trickle down effect. They've been seeing our little one with us for the last 1.5, 2 years, and the way they interact with her is just the way that they interacted with my older one when she was that age. So you see, the acceptance has to start coming in at not just at the level of the people who are educated, but I think it has to go down to the grassroots, right down to everybody in the society, to bring about this whole change in our thought process. So with that, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, talking to all of you, and a lot of takeaways even for us young adoptive mothers, especially, from the experiences that you all have shared. So thank you once again. And just for your information for you as well as for the others who are watching us on YouTube, we had a technical glitch on both the Facebook channels. So the YouTube video will be shared on our Facebook channels. It'll be live in about an hour or so, and you can watch it again there and reshare it with your contacts. So thank you once again. Thank you, Nilanjana, Julia, Aditya, and Subarna. It was a pleasure talking to all of you.
Great. Best of luck to all of you.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
Best wishes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.